It's Friday night in San Francisco. These people are heading for a lively night on the town, and they're doing something many would find unthinkable. They're checking their phones at the door. This is the National Day of Unplugging, launched 7 years ago by the Jewish nonprofit group Reboot. The goal is to encourage people to take a break from technology and find other ways to entertain themselves. For many, that's easier said than done.
I leave without my phone. I feel like I'm driving in a car without a seatbelt on.
I check my email all the time. I was doing it before.
She was. We were in another bar and she's checking her email for work still, and it's 7:30 at night on a Friday.
So it's good. This is an excuse to just leave the phone behind.
It's like a security blanket in a way for me. Like if I don't have it when I go out the door of my home, I feel kind of vulnerable.
There was a time where you would go out and you would not know what happens in the world for that time you went out. So why has that changed? I guess we're just addicted to the constant stream of I'm knowing what's happening at all times.
At National Day of Unplugging events like this one, people have fun doing non-digital activities, from knitting and coloring to writing notes the old-fashioned way. There's face painting, live music, and even a photo booth.
We ask people to think about what they like to do when they're unplugged. You know, so many people say, oh, I could never put down my cell phone. I wouldn't be able to live without it. But in reality, there's so many things we like to do when we're unplugged.
Reboot spokesperson Tanya Schevitz says it's not anti-technology, but rather urging people to find a better balance in how they use technology. She says the concept comes from the Jewish Sabbath, Shabbat, a regular time set aside for rest.
It's ancient wisdom that is ever more important right now in our hyper-connected world, in a world where we are on 24/7, where there's this expectation that you can be reached and that you will respond to every buzz, beep, vibration, and ping of your phone or your digital devices. So I think it's needed more than ever, really.
Americans are increasingly dependent on their digital devices. According to the Pew Research Center, 92% of U.S. adults own cell phones, and almost 70% of those are smartphones. About 3/4 of Americans own a computer, and nearly half own some kind of tablet. While this has undeniable benefits, many analysts say the negative impact must also be addressed.
The latest study shows that 89% of Americans took out a phone during their last social interaction, and 82% say that it deteriorated the conversation. That's my concern, that we're deteriorating our presence and in-person presence.
Psychologist and Massachusetts Institute of Technology professor Sherry Turkle is author of Reclaiming Conversation: The Power of Talk in a Digital Age. She argues that the near constant distractions of technology can harm many aspects of relationships.
All the things that we get out of conversation, intimacy, empathy, our ability to connect with other people and know them and form relationships, because we're always elsewhere in some way at the same time.
She argues that a deterioration of personal connections has troubling consequences for the entire society.
When something becomes the social norm, we become desensitized. We say, well, that's just the way it is. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't do its damage. And it is particularly damaging to young people, to the children we're raising.
In his recent document on the family, Pope Francis also noted that technology can hurt families, such as, quote, when at dinner time everyone is surfing on a mobile phone, or when one spouse falls asleep waiting for the other who spends hours playing with an electronic device. For the National Day of Unplugging, Tanya Schevitz organizes non-digital events for adults and children as well. She says she was taken aback by one recent interaction with a father.
He said, oh my gosh, we really need this. And he turned to his daughter, who was about 5, and said, who's mommy's best friend? And without hesitation, this little girl said, her cell phone. And I mean, my gosh, that's just heartbreaking. I wouldn't want my kids saying that.
Still, Schevitz admits unplugging is something that she struggles with as well. She puts her phone away when she picks up her kids from school and tries not to be on it again until they go to bed.
They know that they're going to get my attention when I pick them up from school, that I'm not going to be only half listening, or I'm going to be glancing at my phone or checking Facebook. They know that I'm going to listen to what they have to say, that I'm going to play with them.
Many experts are also concerned that people use digital devices as a way to avoid being alone with their thoughts.
You can see that anxiety about being alone, when you look at people at a checkout line in a supermarket, and I study people at stop signs. I mean, they're supposed to wait for 4 seconds. At 3 seconds, they're checking their text.
As a Zen master and guiding teacher at the Cambridge Zen Center in Massachusetts, Jane Dobisz believes there are great spiritual benefits to being still and being in the present moment. She finds help in the ancient Buddhist practice of meditation.
That's what meditation addresses, is that this moment is so rich. It's so wonderful if you can just stop running away from it. Take the breath, take a rest, settle into the moment, and then hear the sound of the bird. Feel the wind on your cheek, smell the flower, feel your body, feel your heart.
Dobisz leads device-free meditation retreats for college students.
They're told in the beginning of the day, no phones, and you can't check your phone during the break or anything. And they are so happy. At the end of that day, it's just 9 to 3. It's not like a huge commitment. They are so happy.
She says they're amazed at their heightened awareness of the world around them.
And it's a revelation for them that they could see the flower, because you can't see the flower if you're doing this.
I feel we're at a moment where we've adopted a new technology. We've been vulnerable to its seduction. And we're also ready to say this has not led us to a good place in terms of how it's affected our relationships. It's time for a change.
Professor Turkle says one of society's ethical priorities should be carving out what she calls sacred spaces, where conversation and relationships are given more importance than technology.
Empathy is at stake. And we need empathy to raise children who are able to be ethical and moral people.
But given all the new digital gadgets flooding the market, the challenges to doing that may only get greater. I'm Kim Lawton reporting.